Today I have come with a new video session for history, that is the chapter today is theme number 2 from your part 1 book, that is Kings, Farmers and Towns. Okay, Kings, Farmers and Towns. So today we'll do this and we'll go through with the lesson part wise. Okay, so today we are going to discuss on mm, the kings of the period from 600 BCE to 600 CE. Okay, the time period from 600 BCE, before Common Era, to 600 CE, that is Common Era. Okay, so such a long period. What type of kings, what type of farmers were there? Okay, their living, about their whole history we'll be studying today in this lesson. Okay, about the kings, about the farmers and the towns of that period. Okay, so this period, about this period we come to know from the different sources, as we know that history is nothing without sources. So what are the sources which has helped to know about this period, this whole 100 years period, 600 BCE to 600 CE? Okay, so the sources are the inscriptions. Okay, inscriptions. Then number 2, the texts. Okay, the different books, documents, all those who have those we have found, the archaeologists or the historians have found of that period. Okay, then the coins. Okay, coins. Then the visual materials. Visual materials here means the buildings. Okay, the artifacts used by the people of that time. Okay, all the monuments, forts and all, visual materials. Canals also may be, wells also may be, planned cities of that period. These are all the sources which has helped us to know about this period. Okay, so inscriptions. What are inscriptions? Inscriptions are the engraved script written on hard material, maybe rocks, maybe metal, maybe on stones, wood, in carved. Okay, the person, he doesn't use a pen or a pencil. Okay, he used some sharp material to engrave, to carve on that metal or a material. Okay, maybe a wood, maybe a rock, maybe a stone. So that is known as inscription, and study of inscription is known as epigraphy. You will get in your book. Okay, what is epigraphy? Epigraphy is the study of different inscriptions. Okay, so many inscriptions have been found of past period. Some are deciphered, some are not deciphered. Okay, and those study has to be done, and that study, when we do it, it is known as epigraphy. Okay, so about this period, first credit goes to person that you have done in the last chapter. So I think in class 11, yeah, class 11 you have done who was James Prinsep, the second Director General of Archaeological Survey of India. He came just after Alexander Cunningham, isn't it? So James Prinsep, when you get to your textbook, you will get a point over there, number 1, Prinsep and Piyadasi. So now who is this Prinsep? Prinsep is James Prinsep. Okay, he is related with inscriptions. He has deciphered, he has studied the inscriptions of the period from 600 BCE to 600 CE, and he has deciphered two scripts. What are these two scripts? These two scripts are the Brahmi scripts and the Kharosthi script. Okay, he has deciphered it. He has studied. He studied Pali also, Prakrit also. These are different scripts and languages of ancient India. Okay, so a question might come. Name some language or scriptures of ancient India. Then you can mention those names. These names are Brahmi, Kharosthi, then Pali, Prakrit, Tamil, Sanskrit. All these are ancient languages and they all have their own scripts. Okay, so what are the two scripts that James Prinsep had deciphered? It's the Brahmi and the Kharosthi script. Okay, so he studied that and he found out that in many inscriptions one particular term was inscripted, okay, and that was Piyadasi. Okay, the term Piyadasi was found very often in the inscriptions in the iron pillars, inscription in the rock, stone monuments and all. So he found that Piyadasi was many times inscripted and he found out the meaning of Piyadasi. What was Piyadasi? Piyadasi meant pleasant to behold. Okay, pleasant to behold, and it referred to a very famous and generous king. Okay, so it was who here he meant to be was Ashoka, King Ashoka. Okay, so he here means that Piyadasi was pleasant to behold. There were a few inscriptions which also referred to the king as Ashoka, one of the most famous rulers known from Buddhist texts. Okay, he referred to many other, not only the inscription in the text also, and he found that Piyadasi was somebody who was very pleasant person. Okay, and that was the meaning of Piyadasi. Okay, and in this way, when he started to study and decipher all these languages, many European historians, scholars started to learn and decipher different other sources of this period. Okay, and many dynasties were being reconstructed from the past. Okay, so now we come to the next part, that how the states were being formed. Here states doesn't mean like what states we have nowadays, United States of America or our Indian states, not like that. Okay, states here means here kingdoms. Okay, which was not very big states. Okay, like in the last year we read about the early men, how they were living in groups and they did not have any basis of society or a community or having a leader, but gradually it came up. Okay, so this was going on, and we find that how the earlier states started to form. Okay, so in page number 29 of your textbook, you'll get the part number 2 point, the earlier states, and it talks about this period 600 BCE to 600 CE, that some early states were starting to form in the Indian subcontinent. Okay, and these were known as Janapadas. What are Janapadas? Janpada. Jan and Pada are two words. Jan here means common man. Okay, man, Jan. Pada is meaning pad, or in Hindi it's known as the foot or the feet. Okay, where man sets its foot, that place was named as Janapada. Okay, and those Janapadas, now some of them became very huge. Okay, a huge kingdom, a huge place. Okay, and they were named as Mahajanapadas. Greater than Janapadas became Mahajanapadas. So there were about 16 of them which were famous Mahajanapadas of this period. Okay, so Mahajanapadas were 16 in number. So these Mahajanapadas were Anga, Vaji, Magad, Koshala, Kuru, Panchala, Gandhara, Avanti, Malla, Kashi, Chedi, Vatsa, Matsya, Sursena, then Ashvaka, Kamboja. So these 16 of them. Okay, and among all these 16, some were very important, and the most important was Magad or the Magadha. Okay. So these Mahajanapadas, how many I told you? 16 in number. And the most popular, famous one, important one was the Magad or the Magadha. Now, present time, Magad is Patliputra, that is Patna. That's in Bihar region. Okay, it was very famous Mahajanapadas of this period. Okay, and this Mahajanapadas, they were being ruled by a group of people. Okay, not by only one person. Okay, they had a government which was known as oligarchy. Oligachy. Okay, Oligachy. Oligarchy. You'll get in your book. Okay, you refer your book when you see the video. Okay, oligarchy is a type of government where people in group, they are involved in administration and governance of the place. Okay, not only one person is the sole, has the sole power to rule, not like that. Group of people. Okay, so oligarchy, a form of government where power is exercised by a group of men, and these men, they were known as the Ganas or Sanghas. Okay, two names were there, Ganas or Sanghas. Okay, so this was the how Mahajanapadas were being ruled. Who ruled it? Mahajanapadas. The Ganas or the Sanghas ruled the Mahajanapadas. It was not power of a single person. It was the power of a group of people, a group of men. Okay. Now, how did this Mahajanapadas try to maintain the kingdom? From where did the Ganas or the Sanghas got money or economy to maintain and manage the kingdom? So they had to rely on taxes. Okay, so who gave these the taxes to them? It was being collected from the traders, the cultivators, the artisans. Okay, as we have an empire or a state or a kingdom, okay, the administration and the governance people, they have to give security, isn't it? Security to his kingdom people. The common people are relying on them. So how they had to, the kings and the rulers give their surety to the common people that they will be keeping them secure by also raising a army. Okay, soldiers were being raised. So now these soldiers have to be maintained, managed. So for that we need money. So the kings or the rulers or the Ganas and the Sanghas, they had to get those money from the collection of taxes, and that collection of taxes, those taxes came from where? From the traders, cultivators, artisans. Okay, from those sections they collected those taxes. And in the text we can find also that that time like raids were legal. Okay, invading other countries, other states, other kingdoms were legal work for a king. Okay, they used to raid the weaker states, neighboring states, and collect bounty of wealth from those states to help in ruling and securing their own kingdom. Okay, so these types of proofs have also been found from inscriptions and text, that raid was legal in this period. Okay, now, and we find that the society was grouped into different divisions. Okay, still in this period we don't come to know about whether actually that Varna system was being followed or not, but still we find Brahmanas were there, and Brahmanas were they wrote Dharma Sutras and Dharma Shastras to be followed by the common people, by the Rajas or kings and all. Okay, so Dharma Sutras and Dharma Shastras were being written, okay, by the Brahmanas. And now we come to 2.2, the first amongst the 16 Magad, the Magad kingdom. I told you before that how many Mahajanapadas were there? 16 Mahajanapadas, and among them the most important one was Magad or Magadha. Okay, so why was it important? That question comes very often. Okay, so you be prepared with this. Okay, it carries 5 to 6 mark. Okay, why was Magad the most powerful Mahajanapadas, okay, of 6th century BC? Okay, a question might come like this. Why was Magadha the most powerful Mahajanapadas of 6th century BCE? So what will be the answer for that? So let's discuss that. Number 1, Magad in today's time, in present time, it is the region where Bihar is. Okay, that Bihar and Jharkhand region was Mahajanapada Magadha. Okay, why it is important? It was important Mahajanapada. Number 1 reason, it lies in the alluvial Gangetic plain. Okay, the river Ganga, the longest river of our country, river Ganges, and the holy sacred river of the Hindus. Okay, it flows along with its numerous tributaries, and this carries alluvial silt with it and makes floodplain in this region. And this alluvial soil was very much, still now it is, isn't it? It's very much productive for agriculture, isn't it? And that is why it became famous in that period. Okay, alluvial Gangetic plain region, thus agriculture was especially productive. Okay, so that is one reason. Number two reason is that in today's time also we'll find iron mines in this region, and in that period, in 6th century BCE to 6th century CE, we find that mines of iron was found in Magad Mahajanapada, and this iron, it became a resource for making tools and weapons. Okay, man did not know about iron before. Okay, the first metal man knew was the copper. Then he came gradually to know about iron, and this iron was found in abundance in the Mahajanapada region. So this is second point why Mahajanapada Magadha was very important. Okay, number 3, the nearby forest. It has dense forest in this region. Okay, still now, and in that ancient time, that region was densely forested, and it supplied a very important component of the army. What was that? The elephants. Okay, before, in that period, people did not have war with bombs and explosives and all. They did not know about it. Okay, so elephants were found in this region, which supplied elephants to the army. Okay, number 4, fourth reason about its importance, that is the river Ganga and its tributaries. It was like it provided means of cheapest communication. Okay, the waterways, inland waterways for transporting goods. Okay, it was very helpful through the help of river Ganga and its tributaries. Okay, so that is number 4th reason. And number 5 reason is that this place, this Mahajanapada, Magadha, had many ambitious kings with different powerful policies what they had brought out. Okay, and among them you can name King Bimbisara, okay, King Bimbisara, King Ajatsatru, and King Mahapadmananda. Okay, these were some of the ambitious king of Magad Janapada, and that's why this place became a very famous Mahajanapada. Okay, the capital of Magad initially was Rajgaha. Okay, when Mahajanapada Magad was formed, it had to make a capital for the royal people to stay, for administering and governing and all. So that place was Rajgaha. Rajgaha means place where king lived, house of the king. Okay, but by 4th century BCE, the kings, they shifted their capital from Rajgaha to Patliputra, 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 which is now present name is Patna. Okay, so this is how Mahajanapad Magad became a very famous Mahajanapada of 6th century BCE to 6th century CE. Okay, so next part is discussion on, in this same place Magad, a very famous empire. Empire now becomes from a when you compare state, kingdom, empire, empire is a very huge area. Okay, so we are going to study that how Magad became an empire, under whom, under which dynasty, in the next chapter. That is, we will be learning on the Mauryan Empire in the next video session. Okay, so today I end up here, and I think all have understood my explanation and discussion and all. Any queries and all, you will get it by reading the text very carefully. Okay, so thank you for today. All stay safe, stay at home.
Stay home, stay safe.
Do it for self.
Do it for your family. Do it for India.
Let's break the chain of COVID-19.
हम होंगे कामयाब, जय हिंद. हम होंगे कामयाब, जय हिंद.
हम होंगे कामयाब, जय हिंद.